Manchester City's 4-1 defeat of Liverpool was one that was in many ways shocking, but not exactly surprising at the same time. It was shocking because you wouldn't normally expect Liverpool to surrender so meekly against City, a City side that they fought so hard to actually, wrest away Premier League titles from. But it was also not surprising because, well, Liverpool this year haven't exactly been anywhere close to their peak form. That 7-0 victory over Manchester United seems more of an aberration than it ever was before. And truth be told, what City did was not only outwit, let's say, Liverpool and Jurgen Klopp tactically, but it also required a very different setup, different formation from Pep Guardiola to actually outwit Liverpool and to exploit what is admittedly a very glaring weakness of theirs, and one that's been around for quite some time, but which hasn't perhaps quite been as exploited as ruthlessly as what Guardiola and co did. What exactly were those tactics? Well, we'll go over it briefly, and we'll even try and draw a few lines for you over a formation to help kind of figure out where it is that City were going right and what it is that they were looking to target. Now, before we do that, let's take a look first at the tactics that they used. Now, first off, it should come as no surprise to anyone that City used their possession of the ball very, very well. They were looking to dominate, and despite the fact that at times it felt like they were only running into acres of space, that was something that they were manufacturing as much as it was being created by Liverpool's tendency to play a high line. Not just that, they really exploited that high line to the hilt, because again, this has been an issue with Liverpool that they look to play high, but because their pressing game isn't quite what it once was, then it ends up actually, haunting them in the long run. And what's more, and this is what we'll demonstrate to you in a drawing, is that Manchester City used a box midfield of sorts to actually outmaneuver Liverpool in the midfield, and that was very, very effective. And we'll look at that box midfield in a bit, but it is worth noting that all three of these things, as I said, it wasn't just down to Liverpool being poor, it was in fact down to City being very, very good. Now, we'll look at how it is that it played out. Before that, we'll take a look at the formation on screen. Now, this was the formation that City had in fact used. As you can see, you had Ederson in goal, and you had three centre-backs. You had Ruben Dias, Nathan Ake, and Benjamin Akanji. And the 3-4-3 that they were playing was not exactly traditional because there are four players. You had Rodri and Gundogan as traditional midfielders. You also had John Stones in midfield alongside Kevin De Bruyne. So that was in essence to pack the middle of the park and to ensure that they only sent Liverpool wide. And then the three forwards, you had Grealish on the left, Mahrez on the right, and Alvarez down the middle. Now, this is where things start to get really interesting, and this is where we're going to start doing a little bit of drawing to make you understand where exactly it is that Liverpool were going wrong and City were going very, very right. So what was happening in defense was that when Liverpool were out of possession, Alvarez would more often than not drop into these central areas here, and Gundogan would drop here, Rodri would drop here, and De Bruyne and Stones would end up coming a little central. So in essence, you'd have Rodri and Gundogan protecting the back five, De Bruyne and Stones being in front, and Alvarez forming like something of a pentagon of sorts, you can say, that was actually able to box out or box in Liverpool's three midfielders. Now, this was the tactic when it comes to what they were doing in the middle of the park. It was overwhelming them very nicely, and then what really was the key thereafter was what they were doing in attack. Once the midfield clumped up with the centre backs, then what their strategy was to play the ball around, draw Liverpool, into them by actually exploiting their press, and then that's when things would get really effective because they would end up playing through Liverpool's lines and picking out Mahrez or in some cases Grealish in space. And Grealish in particular was really targeted because then what would happen was that the wide players would have acres of space to run into, which was left by Liverpool, whose line would be in and about here. Now, what would happen is that these three forwards then would have acres of space, and then one of Rodri or Gundogan, more often than not Gundogan, would run forward to support them in space. Now, this is, as I said, it was the tactic that they used consistently and one that they exploited to the hilt. And beg pardon, you could see that it was something that it really worked for them because a lot of their goals came from when Jack Grealish was rampaging down the left side. Was that by design? Yes, it was, because Liverpool's major weaknesses in recent times, one of them has been Trent Alexander-Arnold and his propensity for being defensively, let's say, a little suspect. Now, obviously, this is not something that is news to anyone. We know for a fact that Alexander-Arnold going forward, great. But going back, sometimes defensively can be caught out a little bit. In this season, more and more teams have tried to target Alexander-Arnold. None perhaps could do it as effectively as what Liverpool did here. What's worse is that Liverpool continue to persist with their high line despite them not being able to press the forwards or to press City's defense effectively at all. What that just does is you basically have a lot of players very high, but you don't quite have the structure or the semblance to be able to play that pressing style properly, because in order to press you need a high line, but Liverpool aren't really pressing very well, and to make things worse, their midfield was offering little to no protection to the centre back. So more often than not, the Liverpool players found themselves with acres of space through the lines, and thus they were able to City players found themselves in acres of space through the Liverpool lines. They were able to take full advantage, and truth be told, even though Liverpool scored one goal, that Salah goal which actually gave them the lead, it was against the run of play, and once City's plan really started to click, you could see just how ruthless they looked. And afterwards, even Jurgen Klopp admitted that we just did not look good enough on the night, and this wasn't a good performance from us. So this is something that obviously Jurgen Klopp and his players will need to fix pronto, because again, it's a very glaring, evident weakness that Liverpool have, that their high line isn't very effective. And the weakest link there is Trent Alexander-Arnold, as City proved once again by ruthlessly targeting him. In fact, Jack Grealish put in a man-of-the-match level performance on the left wing, partly because he was up against a defender who he knew he had the beating of. And if Liverpool are to actually start a revival of sorts, even in the middle of this season, something that needs pronto, it needs fixing pronto. Thank you guys very much though for joining us in this video. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to like it, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel, tap that bell icon, leave us a comment, and don't forget also to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Last but not the least, don't forget to also download the Sports Today app. And if you're already on the channel, go ahead, check out some other videos that we've done. For now though, from my side, goodbye.